As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
And there it is, right there. You know what? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it is a special night. There is a special DJ Scratch because we have a special illustrious guest in our panel in place of Matt tonight. Matt's busy off doing, well, things that are funner than talking about what we're going to talk about tonight, which, go ahead and run it, J Pink.
Oh, I absolutely was not ready.
Joe knows turf. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because Joe knows turf.
Joe does. Joe actually reached out to me this past week, and he is still alive, and that's good to hear and know, and all that kind of stuff. But tonight is a extended cut, a director's cut, if you will. Lushy, you there, aren't
Gentlemen, I'm
you?
here.
See, he is here, and he is here for an extended cut of Joe Knows Turf. There's been a lot that we have not been able to unpack here, to use Matt's favorite verb. And we feel the need to exercise the demons, right, Lushy? Sometimes it's good to just, get in there into that open wound and scrub out all the pus and the bad stuff. Maybe talk about a little bit of good stuff too. There's some good stuff out there as well. So, these are a whole bunch of videos that have been sent up to us over the last probably about 4 weeks because everybody here on this panel has been busy at one point or another. And we just have not had time to really dive in and take a constructive but unapologetic, right, Ray, approach to just hearing what's out there in the world of YouTube and social media and turfgrass right now. So, without further ado, we're just going to line them up and knock them down one at a time. And, gentlemen, I have to tell you that I just went ahead and assembled these because they were sent in at different points. And so this is going to be multiple videos from the same content creator. This was not done on purpose. This is not done to slight this individual, although maybe a little bit. And just go ahead and dive in with this first person here that's going to give us really an entire album of shit to wade through. Let's go ahead and go with it.
I put propiconazole on my yellow spots where the neighbor took his tree down. I sent you pictures last week. Do I water it in? Thanks so much, Ron. Yes. So propiconazole, azoxystrobin, most fungicides in general, at least the ones that are designed for use on residential turf, are designed to be watered in after application. So I'll show you some examples here. If we look at the fungicides on the Golf Course Lawn Source, you got from a liquid option, you've got Pillar SC. From a granular option, you've got Headway G. Both of these are designed to be watered in after application. So you would apply them and then 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of water to work it down into the soil profile, and then you're good to go. So yes, absolutely you want to run your irrigation after you are done applying your fungicide.
Okay. So there's a lot of nuance that's lacking there. And that's not entirely true, at least from my perspective. And Ray, I want you to jump in here and just give me a go, no go on that statement that you should water in all or most of your fungicides that are used in residential turf. So that's a go, no go. And then I'd like you from a educational perspective to just describe in brief the three different modes, right, that fungicides can enter the plant, right? So whether that's contact, systemic, or a localized or a croppable penetrant. Maybe describe
Right.
those different ways.
Okay. Well, here's my go no go. First question to ask is the disease you're treating a disease occurring on the leaves and stolons and shoots of the grass, or is it a soil-borne infection? That
It's yellow spot
should,
disease.
yeah. And I got to pause right here because we haven't even identified what is causing the yellow spots. We haven't even identified. I mean, because when somebody tells me that they have yellow spots and there is a tree removal involved, I'm immediately thinking, what if the arborist dropped gasoline or oil on the lawn? What if
Yeah.
there's wood chippings that were thrown into the grass and now there's a localized area where the wood chippings are taking nitrogen from the grass because they need that for decomposition? So that's my first point to stop at. Next up is, even if there is some kind of a disease, knowing where your disease occurs makes a huge difference as to whether you should even water in your fungicide or not. Because, Ryan, you asked about systemic, contact, and locally systemic fungicides, right?
Correct.
Okay. A contact fungicide. What that means is that your fungicide is only effective when it has contacted live fungal structures. And so if your disease, for example, resides on the leaves and the shoots of the turf grass, it's not going to be very helpful if you wash that fungicide off. Next up would be your systemic fungicide. Now, those systemic fungicides, they may be more effective on soil-borne or root-infecting pathogens if they're watered in. However, Ryan, there are not very many soil-borne infections or diseases, are there? Majority of them are occurring on the leaves, shoots, and stems of the turf grass. I mean, I can only
Fair
think
statement.
of, necrotic ring spot, summer patch, take-all patch, and pythium. Those are the
And your
diseases that come to my mind when I'm talking about soil-borne or infections that attack the roots. And
And for
then
your summer
finally,
patch, you got to be out
yeah,
earlier in the spring, right? Not now.
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, because by the time you see the damage from the summer patch, that summer patch pathogen has already killed the roots. And then lastly, you have fungicides that are called locally systemic or acropetic penetrants. And those fungicides, they have the property of, say you spray on the upper surface of a leaf, right? A locally systemic fungicide then has the ability to relocate to the underside of that sprayed leaf. However, it does not mean necessarily that that fungicide will then translocate into the root. However, a locally systemic fungicide is often very effective for these more difficult to control leaf and shoot pathogens. So if somebody were to apply a locally systemic fungicide and water it in, then they're probably going to lose efficacy of their application if they're targeting a leaf and shoot disease. I mean, you know, Ryan, what's alarming to me about this recommendation to water in a fungicide, irregardless of the circumstance, is just the total lack of nuance and context.
I agree, and
You
I
know,
think
that's
the other thing,
troublesome.
I think that's the crux of the issue here is that a blanket statement that could be taken by many to make the wrong choice, right? That's the issue. So again, the things here to understand would be the ways and the manners in which fungicides will move within a plant, right? Specifically a turf
Mm-hmm.
plant, and understand the differences between those. The other thing here would be really being able to ID the disease that you have and then choosing the correct product, and which would then mean where the target site's going to be. Is this a root
Mm-hmm.
issue? Is this a foliage right issue or shoot
Mm-hmm.
issue? And how do we address those appropriately? So it's a good starting point. Just think about that. If you don't just go water it in, please do not just flip the sprinklers on after you make any fungicide application. That would be a sore mistake and a very expensive one too, because
Mm-hmm.
not only are you washing away potentially a material that's at the target site of where it needs to be, but also too the other thing that I think on the nuance, the flip side of this is that fungicide applications that should be watered in, how much do you water them? When do you water them? Do you water them right away? Do you water? So there's a whole set of best practices behind that too. And very quickly, if you are going to do that, right? Recent research out of NC State suggests that immediately, as soon as you possibly can, that about an eighth of an inch of water, up to about a quarter inch, is going to move that fungicide, generally speaking, into the area of the root zone that it needs to be taken up by the roots. But there's a whole other sets of compounding factors there, thatch, other things that we won't go into right now. But again, a broad blanket statement, a very dangerous one here if you're trying to get it right. So, J Pink, let's go on to track number 2 in the Ron Henry's July.
Occurs on the same every year after year. I treat it, it goes away, but it comes back in the same areas every year. So here's what I would say. If you know you have an area of the lawn that is prone to, say, like large patch, right? And you know that it happens in June, what I would do is I would get fungicide in the soil in May. So earlier than when the disease tends to manifest itself, get your fungicide application down. So using it as a preventative, that's going to do a lot to one. I mean, if you do it right, you won't have the problem at all. But worst case scenario is going to be far less aggressive than if you don't do it preventatively. So I'm a fan of doing fungicide in May and then another one in June.
Yikes.
Yikes.
So again, what the person asking the question is saying is that, hey, I have a disease, we assume, that is occurring in the lawn in the same spot. They treat with fungicide, it comes back, and then I'm assuming within that same growing season, and then it returns year after year in that same spot. Now, I don't doubt that could be happening. However, you would think that if you're treating it with a fungicide and that fungicide is not effective year over year, that you would, either try to want to ascertain if it's actually a biotic problem, right, with the turf. And then secondly is that, maybe it's something that's not a disease, right? Don't know, don't have a ton of
Localized
context on the
dry
question.
spot.
Very well could be, right? And so that's
Foreign
part too.
objects, rocks, right? Lushy, gravel. I mean, you've seen an instance where
The worst of the worst Lushy's seen.
lawns planted over gravel can exhibit strange symptoms, especially when it gets hot, right? It can, right?
Yep. Heats right up.
It gets hot and then the grass dies, and it happens in the same spot every year.
If somebody has a fetish for gravel and rocks in a lawn, Lushy actually works at the adult bookstore of that. So it's true. You should see some of the pictures. It's
Yikes.
disgusting.
Yep.
So again, I think the premise here on the video is that, hey, you've got a problem, just go out there and apply some more fungicide, just see if that takes care of it. Go out earlier, go out later. Again, nuance is important, right? So again, I would say understanding the parameters of the question, asking better questions, I think is incumbent. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we get these, on our call-in show and things like that, where you don't have enough context and you've got to answer with a couple of if then else statements, right? If you see
Mm-hmm.
this, then this, or else that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's again, I want to see this information correctly used, applied, and just selling more shit may not be the answer.
Is
Mm-hmm.
is May late for his large patch? Right, that doesn't seem right to me. Right, because isn't there a temperature that you're putting out? And we don't deal with large patch that much, so
Okay.
we'll get notifications from Syngenta about it based on soil
Mm-hmm.
temperature to
Mm-hmm.
start putting it out. But I
But
know
you know
I
what?
think I get that in April.
Yeah. Lushy, large patch actually happens the year before in the fall. It does not happen in the spring. And if somebody has large patch damage and they see it in the spring, then my words to them are literally, where was your September and October fungicide applications? And next question is, what kind of turf grass are we talking about here? Yeah, because large patch is most commonly a disease that is associated with zoysia grass, St. Augustine, and centipede, and to a lesser extent, Bermuda. However, under normal conditions, Bermuda grass is not very susceptible to large patch anyway. So
Well, but
I
Ray,
gotta.
touch on that too, real quick. Touch on the fact that if it's hey, I see this in June, right? And hey,
Mhm.
just go apply something in May. Again, don't have any context. This is warm or cool season grass, right? But let's assume he's in
Yeah,
cool season country. Might be dollar spot, right? So again, trying to
might be
understand
dollars.
what turf type is, and
Yeah,
that's a
yeah. You
simple fix.
see,
Hey, let's apply a little bit more nitrogen and start there, right? As a basis
yeah.
instead of just hammering out some headway and hoping for the best.
Right, right. I mean, it's all about our context and cultural practices, because I know we're frequently fond of saying you cannot spray your way out of out of a problem. I mean, that's something that I tell people, quite often, and that's kind of why I've told people, you know, hey, you don't need me. You need a bulldozer. You scrape out this shit, get it done right, so that you don't have this problem recurring year after year after year. I mean, you cannot spray your way out of a problem. And you got to ask yourself now, are you this lawn's worst enemy? Do you have it on an optimum mowing regimen? Do you have it on a fertility program that encourages health of the grass rather than disease? I mean, and do you have it on an irrigation program that also promotes health rather than disease? I mean, there's a lot of things to do and to ponder before reaching for that bag of Headway G or that bottle of Pillar. And there's a lot to think about.
Mm.
And that's just what I see lacking, because you know what I noticed, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed this guy drilling down into the cultural practices of the lawn when he has a question. I never see him drill down into that. Whereas I know
He doesn't make it.
those
You don't make no money
those
that
of us
way.
those of us on this panel,
You ain't slinging
we
rock.
always.
You ain't making no cash.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like we need those. The money from the affiliate links. I mean, that's what we got to get. But then on the other hand, I never see people questioned about their cultural practices or their general agronomic practices. I never see him ask about that. And that is something that has just occurred to me, is that anytime somebody asks a question, the answer to their question is in the form of a product on his affiliate link. Always.
Take it for what it's worth,
Kelly knows.
folks. All right,
Kelly knows
let's
the
watch
answer.
the next one here.
Whenever I survey my lawn in the morning, I see small cobwebs on the lawn. Is this dollar spot? Yeah, it's the beginnings of it. And what you'll find is, for most people, you'll see that and then it just goes away. In a Bermuda lawn, if the lawn is getting enough nitrogen, and you're mowing it properly with sharp equipment, dollar spot typically isn't a big problem in Bermuda. I'm not saying it can't be, but if your nutrient program is on point and the lawn is getting enough nitrogen, you're mowing it well, you may see a few webs here and there in the morning when there's dew on the lawn, but typically by mid-morning, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, they're gone. And they never materialize. They never really turn into anything. So on Bermuda, you tend to not really have a lot of problems with dollar spot. Again, assuming nutrients are where they need to be. It's not typically a problem in Bermuda grass. So long short of it is, if the lawn still looks good outside the little webs that you see in the morning when there's dew on the lawn, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. So, again, nuance here. Maybe Ron may not know, and I'll give him, full faith and credit that he may not know the answer here. So, J Pink, I want you to go ahead and throw up the second picture I saw. Oh, you can throw the first one up. That's fine. Go ahead and zoom in on that real quick. Now, let me ask the panel: is that dollar spot? Does that look like
No.
dollar spot?
Is that a funnel
Okay.
spider?
There's a
Yeah,
hole
is
in
that
there.
some
Yeah.
kind of a
So,
yeah,
it's
that's
spider or
some kind of a
spider mite,
spider. Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
So the
it's a
arachnids,
spider.
spiders, mites, and ticks.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
8 legs instead of 6
spiders.
if you're out there looking for your ID characteristics. That's the easy
Mhm.
one. But so the idea here is that you'll see these a lot and very often on lawns, both cool and warm season, grass. And this can very, very, very easily be confused for dollar spot. Now flip over to for me real quick. Now here,
Yeah.
this is mycelium. This
Mhm.
is the fruiting structures of dollar spot, right? And we also know
Mhm.
something too that was recently found within the last, probably about 4 or 5 years, that there's actually two different genus and species for dollar spot, one that affects
Yes.
warm season turf and one that affects cool season turf. Okay. It's
Mhm.
classified differently than it used to be. You'll see it previously referred to as Sclerotinia homeocarpa. That was a Latin name,
Mhm.
but the problem is that all the Sclerotinia produces sclerotia as a fruiting variety. That's not sclerotia, right? So that's the nerd science of all that kind of stuff. But
Ryan,
what we do
I
know is
I
if
have
we're
a
trying to ID this, the other thing to look
Mhm.
for is the pitting, right? So you'll see the grass just starting to pit where that mycelium is when you have the early signs of dollar spot. So again, you'll typically see this. It's a damn sure bet that on weak turf or untreated turf, the morning after a rain, especially if night times are in the upper 60s to around 70 degrees, you're going to see this stuff blowing up in those lawns. So take a good hard look. So don't get freaked out if you see something that looks like um, a web or white structure. Go out there, rub your fingers in it, feel it, see if it goes away. If it disintegrates like mycelium would, you might feel a little bit of thread-like material with the spider mite webs from time to
if
time.
it feels stretchy, yeah, if it feels stretchy, then no worries. But then if it feels more powdery and dusty, and you know what my identifying characteristic for dollar spot always is,
Uh,
are lesions that go across the entire grass sleeve, and the lesion is separated from the green tissue on the leaf by a black margins, but inside of
There's
the
an
black
example of that in
is,
that
is
picture, J
white.
Pink.
Yeah,
Top left corner above the leaf that's in there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you see this white across the leaf with a black band separating the white areas from the green areas. That usually suggests dollar spot to me. And I also have to ask, whenever somebody suspects dollar spot, what kind of grass do they have? What kind of grass
Now,
are they dealing with?
one thing that he did say too in there is that uh Bermuda, I think he specifically said Bermuda grass is not very
Mm-hmm.
susceptible to dollar spot.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And again,
Wow.
very specific times of the year,
Mm.
that's not the case, right, Ray?
Uh-huh. Right? And you know that I've gotten into it with people regarding fungicide use on turf grass in general, where my counsel to them is, if you are dealing with a variety of turf grass or types of turf grass that are susceptible to dollar spot, be very careful when using strobilurin and fungicides. I've said that. On the other hand, if somebody comes to me saying that they have monostand turf type tall fescue, then I can tell them dollar spot is not as much of a concern for them versus if they were growing KBGN rye, or else if they're a real baller, they have a bent tea or a bent green in their front lawn. Then I tell them, you better watch out for dollar spot.
Or just
And
bent grass
likewise,
in your lawn.
bent grass in your lawn. Right, right. And then for the warm season guys, if they're growing Bermuda, growing Zoysia, growing Seashore paspalum, God forbid, then I tell them, be on alert for dollar spot. If they're dealing with St. Augustine, that's not as much of a concern. So, and if they're dealing with centipede, that's not as much of a concern. But then otherwise, you see, talking about fungicide use and diseases, there is just so much nuance and context that has to be included in the conversation. And I think that Ron Henry tries to blank out and obliterate any of the context. I mean, he's trying to put out one size fits all answers. And that to me is just not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. J Pink, I think we've got at least one more in here.
He says, how to treat St. Augustine grass in Michigan. The same way you treat it
What?
anywhere else. So if you have St. Augustine grass growing in Michigan, that's kind of far north for St. Augustine, but you would treat it the same way. You would fertilize it accordingly. You would mow it at taller heights, so 3 inches or taller. You'd use fungicides because St. Augustine is susceptible to lawn diseases, particularly brown patch. So you want to do preventative fungicide on St. Augustine in the May-June timeframe, but it's the same program. Take a look at what Alan Hain does. He's probably one of the best known people when it comes to St. Augustine grass, and whatever he's doing on his lawn, you could do on your lawn. I mean, it's the same grass, it's just growing in a different part of the country.
Okay. Now listen. This
Michigan,
is one
St.
too
Augustine.
this is one where again, it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay, but listen, if you're a legitimate presence, if you're a legitimate authority on answering questions like this, you got to have at least some semblance of a BS meter to be like, wait a second, St. Augustine, Michigan. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to ask you a few questions here to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, and that you don't have large crabgrass, or that you don't have field paspalum or something that looks very similar right? In
Right,
terms of
right.
leaf
Mhm,
texture and size, and has morphology characteristics that most closely
mhm.
align with St. Augustine grass, right?
But
So
it's still very important to get your fungicide applications on your large crabgrass.
if
Right.
you want it to survive until the first frost,
You you
that's the
want
only
it
thing
to
you
Yeah,
can do to
stay
keep
and
it
look
comfortable.
good. Yeah. You
yeah,
want it to seed
and
out
yeah,
so it comes back and is thick and rich and full.
yeah, you
I like
gotta
that
get
limey
out
green.
yeah, you gotta get out your brown patch applications on St. Augustine for May and June. I mean, that is just crucial. I mean, you gotta do it because, in talking with people about brown patch and large patch, as a rule, warm season grasses can develop a variant of rhizoctonia diseases. However, that variant does not hit warm season grasses the same time that the summer and early fall brown patch infections typically hit cool season grasses. I mean, the timing is different because what has been found out is that the species of rhizoctonia that hits warm season grasses is totally different from what we normally associate with damaging cool season turf in the summer. It's a different disease. It's a different species. So, you know, again, I gotta ask: have we identified our turf grass properly? Have we identified our suspected disease properly? I mean, there's a lot of questions that I often ask too when somebody asks me about a inexplicable brown patch or brown patches in their turf grass. I mean, I ask a lot of questions to try to get an answer versus me looking like the dummy applying fungicides, and because it's either the wrong fungicide or their problem is not actually any kind of a disease, the fungicide doesn't work. Now, who looks like the asshole at that time? I mean, this is a lot of questions.
Well, and I think again that's just saying, like, the amount of reach that he has, and I'm sure that the apologists and the haters and everybody else will come out and say, "Well, you guys are just jealous because you only got 25,000 subscribers and he's got double that." I don't give a fuck. The point
I
is,
have
is
no
that
subscribers.
she's got a nice smile and a generally favorable disposition, though, Lushy. There's a lot you can do with your life with
Yep.
those two things.
There is.
Um,
There's a couple things. Street corners are one.
Yikes!
you can't buy a pretty mouth on
Yikes!
Golf Course Lawn Academy. At least I don't think you can.
Yep.
But the point again, the point here is that just and I hope for Ron's sake, with that reach, here's what I would say if I was speaking directly to him is that either you genuinely want to have to get better and you will, or you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and giving people half-assed answers, right? That take all the nuance out of it, and then foster misinformation and foster people, making poor choices because they went back and watched that video, heard something, and thought that, hey, that's the gospel. Off we go, and we're making bad choices. And not only that, but potentially having impacts like we're going to see here in just a minute. Now, for those of you that are enjoying this content, thank you very much. And if you're watching this live, you're a part of our Patreon and you're a part of our private Discord server. You can find out more about that at www.patreon.com/burn and return. It's extremely inexpensive, especially given all the inflation. We have not had to raise our prices basically because we're cheap and we sell ourselves for very little. That's just the way we are as human beings. But besides that, our growing community, it's a really great bunch of people that all kind of share and their love and passion for turf grass, whether it be professionals in the industry that are doing lawn care activities, things like that, all the way down to homeowners and average folks. And because of that, we're going to celebrate here in Louisville here in just about 2.5 months. Week of the what's it now called? Equip Expo, is that correct, JP? I don't want to
Equip.
Yeah.
I don't want
The Equip
to
Expo.
misprint.
Yeah.
So we'll be there. We are completely 100% sold out for our event right now. If you want to get on the waiting list, you're more than welcome to grovel to J Pink. There's lots of things that he won't do for money, but he might do for an invite to Dirty Deeds 2023. So get at him, mail at thegrassfactor.tv. Again, www.patreon.com/Burnaturn. Check us out. Join up over there and come hang with us. All right. Now, if you are a long time and loyal listener, I forgot. If you don't like this and you haven't enjoyed this so far, well, hey, fuck off. I'm sorry. Just the way it is. We're extremely unlikable to a lot of people, and we've proved that very, very much in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So
You are
thank
a fucking pussy.
Jeez.
Thanks, Spencer. Love you, pal.
Love you,
Brian,
psycho.
Brian Whalen called in the other night from North Carolina,
Mhm.
all the way from North Carolina. You know what? And guys, I think the only reason he called in is because our show starts after 9 p.m. Eastern, so he was able to use his night and weekend minutes. That MFer wouldn't use up his anytime minutes on us to save his life. So thanks for calling in, though, Brian. We really appreciated that. Now, if you are a longtime listener, you'll know that we've preached a lot about, hey, what are the far-reaching implications of all the dumb shit that we see on Joe Knows Turf, right? The people that are making wild and dumb prognostications about what people should do, using chemicals illegally or off-label, things like that, saying things like, hey, throw her down, just things like that. I'd like you to watch this clip of a video that came out this week that was sent to me, and basically the premise behind it is anti-lawn, right? That you should kill your lawn off and get rid of it because it's a scourge to society, the environment, this, that, and the other thing. And I want you to watch the little bit of the intro and then see where it goes, and especially for the visual element, the folks that are following along on YouTube, you'll be able to see this here pretty quick. And for the folks that are on audio only, I'll give you a little bit of background after we play through it. So let's just listen and watch.
Biologist Paul Robbins found that people who use chemicals to maintain their lawns tend to think that these chemicals have a negative environmental impact, particularly on local water quality, and yet they do it anyway. According to the EPA, Americans spend more than 3 billion collective hours per year maintaining their lawns and feeding the massive and mega profitable lawn economy, pulverizing habitat and toxifying our surroundings. What on earth has driven this nonsensical behavior? Well, Robbins argues that lawn people are the result of both a moral and political economy. Our story begins with the early colonial capitalists and their ideals. Lawns
Is that Ryan
originated
Knorr
in
on
the
the farm?
1500s in Europe as
Was.
aesthetic,
Mhm.
managed gardens.
Was.
As geographer Becky Ellis notes, these were very distinct from commonly managed land, which tended to consist of meadows for livestock grazing or forests for foraging. Lawns grew in popularity among the British aristocracy throughout the enclosure of the Commons, where peasants were forcefully kicked off of their lands during the transition from feudalism to capitalism. The Enclosure
Now,
Acts
pause.
gave
So, in that video, in that clip, there was features of none other than Ryan Knorr and a few other folks, and namely though, the Lawn Care Nut. And again, they're taking B-roll from YouTube footage and putting this out there. But this is the type of thing that, especially with how some people have gone, and I think Ryan's been extremely pragmatic and done a great job. He gets a lot of heat in his comments and everything like that. Now, on the flip side of that, with Alan, it's not been as measured or pragmatic in any way in terms of throwing down and put some more nitrogen on it, this, that, and the other thing. And this is what we're saying is that it feeds into the narrative that's out there and is so ubiquitous at this point. It's so widespread that we're seeing it now. It's catching up to the point where it's now in content and in context, right? that there are people
Mm-hmm.
out there saying, well, hey, you should get rid of your lawn. Oh, why? Well, because look at there's all these people out there poisoning the environment. And again, you've got people
Mm-hmm.
doing right, and there are plenty of people that do it the right way and follow all the labels, follow all the laws, understand the regulation. And yet we still have folks that want to put on video or on Facebook, Spencer, dumb shit that they should not be doing. And this is the result of it. So I ask you, gentlemen, I ask you, is there a way is there a way to pull these people in to the conversation? The Alan Haynes of the world, Brown, or whoever, right? Whoever gets featured on Joe Knows Turf for something that maybe isn't so good. How would you try to reason with them and say, listen, you need to do this not because, hey, you're going to sell a few less units, this, that, and the other thing, but you're affecting the narrative in a way that will probably swing back and hit us in the face at some point. How would you approach that conversation?
That's a tough one because I like Allen is swinging for the fences for the bros. I mean the lawn domination, throw her down, the whole more is good, more and more is better.
Gooder.
Mm-hmm.
Gooder.
More is
He's
gooder.
gooder.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for correcting my English. Yes.
Betterer.
Betterist.
Mhm.
Most bestest.
And he's started off at the beginning, I think, trying to just educate, and then it's turned into a business. He's trying to feed a network of people that work for him in a his empire that he's built. I get that whole sales part of it. I just don't know where he could kind of say, "Well, we got to ease off," and then from that it gets worse from the sub cells, I guess you could say, that have branched off in the Facebook world that I do swim through those cesspools once in a while, and those can
Mm.
be wild, absolutely wild, and that's a difficult thing to try to rein those in. And it's not even him,
Oh.
that it's
Oh yeah, the network effect has taken over, right? It's 8 degrees of
Ah.
separation, and it's gotten
Mhm.
worse and worse and worse and worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I don't know what to say to this because at some point in time, I think reason and logic has left the room. That is my impression of what's going on. Is reason and logic have left the room, and now you are dealing with people's egos and emotions, and that is where I'm not sure even telling somebody like Alan, hey, did you know that you were the featured person on the video of this cunt that hates lawns? Did you know
Jesus
that you're
Christ.
did you know that you're the did you know that you're the featured person? And
God,
basically
I wasn't ready for that.
can't say that.
Hey,
I don't, and I'm okay with the word too. I wasn't ready for it.
yeah, but
Like
the
a chest pass, a little too hard right there.
yeah,
Hurt my hands.
yeah, but I don't think he can even be reasoned with in any way, shape, or form because he has gotten so far into the rabbit hole of sales and numbers at any cost that I'm not even sure laws or rules mean that much to him, even.
I mean,
I mean, that's what I'm
well,
afraid of.
it's not much different than the big conglomerates that sell fertilizer that are pounded in cheap
Mm.
materials into them, pounded in
Mhm.
humic because it's the new buzzword, and that's what we're going to put on the label. So now we're selling it.
Mhm.
We've
Mhm.
got our carbon pro G. They're all they all are following the mantra, and they're not following his mantra. They're just following the sales mantra. And if that's where the industry's going, and there's revenue to be made, we'll slap something on
Mhm.
the label that'll make a sale.
Okay, it has to hit the all of the right buzzwords, right? That's what it is. And
What look, why does Amp sell lime that is lime with iron and humic in it? Why do I need iron and
what?
humic in my lime applicator? Yeah, the Amp
Okay,
Max, I think as well. Amp Lime has iron and
okay.
humic in it.
Wow,
Like
and you know what?
why?
That
Because
makes
it's
very
green.
little sense. That makes so little sense because lime and iron and humic all contradict each other. You know, in terms
But it's
of
all
what it does
buzzwords.
in a lawn. I mean, it just contradicts. And this is where I always ask when somebody proposes something, whether it be government or agronomy, please make it make sense. Okay? Make it make sense.
I think there's all valid points there. I just, again, if they, you have to decide if those few extra units that you push by getting edgy, right? And I be honest, I think that's why we on this particular platform don't sell anything other than our time, our expertise, our experience, all that, our failures, right? Is that
Mhm.
uh it's hard to be disingenuous, right? When you do that because there is no motive to sell. And I guess what I'm saying here is to, if I was speaking to Alan, I would say, hey, listen, I get that leaning into what you said, Leslie, the domination line, the bruh culture, the meathead lawn type of thing, right? Like, is that extra however many units that you're pushing out each year and those extra profit dollars really worth it in the grand scheme of things? Because again, are you, and I think you could legitimately say this, and you could probably argue back, oh, hey, here and now I'm still making money. But are you biting the hand that feeds you? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you biting the industry that feeds you and eats this stuff up? And there's certainly a huge, demand for his channel, for his groups, everything like that. And God bless the
Mhm.
guy for building that all on his own. Like, no
Yep.
problem
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, just like we
Totally
talked about
agree.
with Ron, you got the reach now, right? And you have the ability to, to maybe dial back a little bit instead of going ape shit with some of the leaning into. And there's some there's some other things there too in terms of antagonizing other professionals, golf guys, everything like that. I see on Twitter and social media sometimes that he likes to poke fun at them, and I don't know if it's an act, I don't know if it's just to be edgy, I'm not sure what it is, but I will say this is that uh those folks are the ones that are trying every day to do it the right way for the most part. And again,
Mhm.
there's bad apples there too, 100% agree. But to have that kind of platform, to be the biggest, right? To be the elephant, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and to act that way, well, I think
It's
you got to do
because
better.
I really think he's very good at market research. Uh, I think he's really hit the mark where he's found people that just wanna buy something and put it down and not do the due diligence. I mean,
Hmm.
I've helped a couple people, on the side through, texting and things like that, and, like, "Hey, have you done a soil test?" "No." "Well, what can I apply?" Like, "Well, why haven't you done a soil test? You're willing to spend hundreds of dollars on product
On
that you may
stuff.
or may
Yeah.
not need on stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
I'm putting something out. I'm putting something
Mm.
out. Like it,
Mm.
like just I don't have a soil probe. You don't need a soil probe. You just go out and dig in the yard. Here, this is how you do it. Send him a quick video. Another guy,
Yeah.
I got this, I got that. I had sod put down. I'm like, yeah, but don't put dimension on top of that sod. Well, no, I want to make sure I don't get crabgrass. I had him put it on it. I'm like, it's in the label. Like, here's a screenshot of the label. Like, this sod was a week old, and you had him run dimension over the top of your. But I
Lord.
wanted him to do it, right? Like, but it is an application. It's got to be made. Something's got to be thrown down. I want the greenest lawn on the block. I want to be the thickest lawn. I want it to be the thickest. And I'm like, you're opening a can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
he's found that algorithm, and he knows that that's who's buying. And I think it's runaway. I think it's a runaway train at this point. I don't even think even if he started trying to change it, he could.
I think, Leshy, unfortunately, you are totally correct. I think you're totally correct because good site planning and good cultural practices don't sell. They don't sell because do you know how many times I get approached by people who know what I do and they ask me, I want you to treat for this disease or to make my grass green right now. I get approached like that, and my answer to them is flat out no. Get a bulldozer. Because basically, you know what Alan reminds me of at some point? He reminds me of Dr. Kevorkian. And do you know why I liken him to Dr. Kevorkian? It's because all the crap that he pushes is the kind of stuff that you need to keep a hospice lawn alive. He's the actual Dr. Kevorkian. I mean, think about that.
I think about it way too much. That's the problem. That's the problem. All right.
I think Jesse B says it perfect in the chat. The government's trying to ban gas stoves. They'll be trying to ban home fert chems soon.
And they already are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at look up the way from you and Jesse right now, and look at Portland, Maine, right? So no synthetic or conventional pesticides or fertilizers now. So again, to sit there and not see what's happening and how that behavior, how that type of speech and how those type of practices ultimately influence and give fuel to the fire, regardless, right, of how it's being broadcast or produced or anything like that. That if it's not all responsible, at least you can hang your head on that, right? At least if they took a clip from yours, and that's what, like, with Nor, he could sit there and say, like, you guys can beat me up all you want, but like, I'm at like 3 pounds, maybe for the year on this, they were showing
not even that.
Not
even
that.
That. Yeah, not even that. I mean,
so there's issues like that. But when you're just leaning into it and you're a meme for the cause of just blatant overuse or whatever, that's a problem. So we'll leave it there. All right, gentlemen, we have covered a lot this evening, and I think with this extended cut, we're going to stop it right there and save some other juicy ones here for future Jono's Turf segment. This was fun to dive in for an hour, and just you really had to I don't know, prepare yourself, especially when Ray said he was going to see you next Tuesday. That was special, and it'll be special again when we see you next Thursday here for our call-in show. We hope you all join us then. Peace out.
It's definitely not Thirsty Thursday. It's totally Burn and Return. That's the wrong closer. That's on J Pink.